I'm Brian Hosticka. I'm running for state representative in District 102.
Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself? What's your background before we get into politics?
I was born in a village in Oceana County, Shelby. I grew up in Whitehall. I'm a graduate of Whitehall Public Schools. I have 2 kids. They're 19 and 21, and they're also graduates of Whitehall. My parents owned Dog and Suds in Montague, on the causeway between Whitehall and Montague, for about 40 years. And I grew up from a young age working there, which I really didn't much like at the time, but I've learned to appreciate it.
So Zach, who's on the camera right now, my business partner, is from Montague. So
okay.
What is Dog and Suds? That's come up a few times. I've seen that. I've read that.
Coney dogs and root beer.
Okay.
Hot dogs and root beer.
Okay.
And really good burgers, too, we serve. Restaurant, drive-in, like you think of like the 1950s, people on roller skates bringing trays out to cars. It's
okay.
Like that, no roller skates. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there?
Well, I also owned a small business, Dairy Treat in Whitehall, where we served dairy products from local dairy farms. So it was an agribusiness. I owned and operated that for about 10 years, and I had a private practice as an attorney. But then I accepted a job with Muskegon County. I'm an attorney, as a public defender. And before I was a public defender, I was a prosecutor for
interesting move.
Quite a few years. Yeah. Not that uncommon, though.
Okay.
I have seen, it might be more common to go from prosecutor to public defender than vice versa, but I've seen both sides of the criminal justice system. And as a prosecutor, I'm a member of the Fraternal Order of Police, and I'm the vice president of the White Lake Community Library.
Nice. Put a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
So why move into politics?
Well, there's things happening in the world that I just didn't want to be idle and watch happen. So I thought I should get involved, and I'm happy that I did. I want to speak out against the division that's happening. I consider myself moderate and civil, and I'm able to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's important to bring back to politics. But at the same time, call out things that I think aren't right, like the threat to democracy that this country faces.
Speak to that a little bit.
Well, there's people being elected that are denying the legitimacy of the last election, including Secretary of States, who control elections. And it can't be. You can vote for anyone you want, but it doesn't count unless it's us. That can't be how American democracy works. The election was fair, and it needs to be recognized as fair, and we can't allow people that are bent on sowing confusion and doubt in elections to be unchecked. And I'm also not happy about the constant demonization of the public schools in this country and in West Michigan. I'm a public school guy. Like I said, my kids are public school educated, and public schools are so important because that's where we make sure that we have an educated electorate, which is what democracy needs to work. And hearing things, people attack public schools and demonize them because they say critical race theory is being taught in public schools, which isn't true. That their kindergartners are being sexualized by their teachers, These are lies. And that's the playbook is undermine public confidence in public schools, so taxpayer money can be grabbed. It's a money grab and diverted into private for-profit enterprises. And public schools need to be supported. That kind of talk, that eighth graders are being taught to hate themselves because of slavery and sexualizing kindergartners. I mean, that's just not true. And I want to be a voice against the distortions and outright lies that are happening.
How do we do that?
Call them out. Say, hey, I win. You know what? I said I was the vice president of the White Lake Community Library, and I'm on the board because Whitehall Public Schools put me there. They appointed me, so I have to report to them once a year. The last time I reported to the Whitehall School Board, I was about to go in the building, and I noticed a big crowd of people out in the parking lot, kind of like rallying themselves up, getting themselves excited. And nobody goes to school board meetings. I mean, there's usually 2 or 3 people in the audience.
I've never been to one.
Yeah, well, not many people have. And I'm like, what is this all about? So I went in and I sat down, and then the crowd came in. And I sat and listened to them one by one go up during public comment at the end of the meeting and just rail against Whitehall Public Schools for teaching critical race theory. And I went to Whitehall. My kids went to Whitehall. Whitehall doesn't teach that. I mean, that's really a law school thing. You know, it's an examination of how racism has affected American institutions. It's not taught at Whitehall.
Sure.
And that needs to be said. These people need to be. Those voices need to be countered.
So you're saying that you're finding that there's national politics making their way into Michigan state politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Betsy DeVos has an initiative right now to divert hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating, per year away from the public school budgets and into private for-profit enterprises. Some of them I'm sure are owned by her family. And that's public schools need to be supported because that's where democracy starts.
Now, how about the hand across the aisle? How do we work together? In a short period of time, because we're not all in public seats forever. I mean, there's going to be a time limit here.
Right.
Like when you're in, how do we reach across instead of continually staying divided to come together? I mean, these are big issues.
Yeah. Keep the dialogue going and do it in a way that's not hostile or confrontational. I can have conversations like that. I have a lot of friends that are pretty far right. In fact, one of my closest friends, he buys into a lot of conspiracy theories, and we go back and forth all the time. Sometimes we get mad at each other, but we come back together the next time and we start it all over again, and we get along just fine. We're friends, and I can bring that to Lansing.
So how do we keep Michigan? How do we focus on what Michigan needs and not so much these big national issues? When you bring up, all these the hot topic points that I think are made more nationally, when we need to focus more on Michigan. We live here in Michigan. We're raising families here in Michigan. We have businesses in Michigan. This is one of 2 other businesses that I have and share with my business partner Zach, who's putting this on. We do a lot of things to try to promote our local area, to promote local businesses, to shed light on things, whether we agree with them or not. We try to make sure that everybody has a voice and an opinion in a lot of things, but we try to do it in a way that we can work together. There's an end goal here. The end goal is a better, safer, more profitable, more the kind of place that you want to raise your family. Whether that's Manistee, anywhere else in your district, or somebody else's district, but here in Michigan is what we're trying to focus on. How do you come to the seat saying, let's forget about all this other noise and just dial in Michigan, your district?
We support small businesses, local farms. I was a small business owner too, like I mentioned, and end the shift that's happened over the last few years of the tax burden away from billionaires and corporations and onto regular working people. I'm running for the working people of this district. This district is almost all working people. I don't know of any billionaires that live in the 102nd district. But you know what happens when that continues is infrastructure crumbles, public schools can't operate. I would not support any tax increase on regular working people. That shift away from billionaires and corporations needs to be stopped, and I would work to end that and put the tax burden back where it belongs. I mean, not exclusively, of course. I mean, everybody has to pay their fair share, but right now, everybody's not paying their fair share, and I think that would be a big boost to the 102nd district if we focused on the working people and the small farms of this district rather than handouts to the wealthiest among us and corporations. And you know, one thing that has irritated me a little bit over the last week or a few days, probably about 10 days or so, when I hear people talk about it's wrong to forgive $10,000 in student loan debt. You know, that's a break for working people. When somebody says that to me, I'm going to remind them about all the Wall Street bailouts that have happened and probably will happen again, and the slashing of tax rates for corporations and billionaires. It's the same thing, only on a much bigger scale. So it's about time that working people got a break, and I think it's great.
You're passionate.
Yeah,
I dig it.
All right.
I think a lot of people dig it.
Good,
good. So, yeah. Why should you get my vote? Why should you get anybody who's watching this' vote? Why should you get somebody who is more right-leaning to come over and give you a vote?
My big three are obviously I'm pro-public education. I'm pro-choice. I will fight for women's freedom, really, is what it is. And the third one is pro-labor. I'm a pro-labor guy. I'm in favor. The trade unions built the middle class in this country. And I'm not just talking about the UAW, who makes the best cars in the world, or the trade unions that build and maintain our infrastructure, or teachers even that bring world-class education so that democracy can function properly. But I'm also talking about the people that pour your coffee at Starbucks, or the musicians that get paid pennies when their songs play on Spotify. You know, unions are the backbone of this country, and that they protect and expand the working class when that happens, because there's safety in numbers, and that's the third big issue
It's
of
a
my
big union
platform.
town here.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I hope so.
some of them are going through some contract disputes.
Yeah,
currently,
I'm aware, and I talked to a couple of them during the Labor Fest here in Manistee the other day, and it became apparent to me pretty quickly that they were supporters of our former president. And I just couldn't help but think, you know what? You've been duped by the greatest grifter in American history. And it was sad to hear that, because he doesn't care about working people, and it is definitely not in favor of unions. So this was sad for me to hear, and I hope it's not pervasive in any other union. I don't know if it's pervasive in their union, but it was pretty clear when I was talking to them that they supported my opposition, and my opposition is not labor friendly.
Labor Fest is a good event, though.
Yeah, it was.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, I had fun.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk to you, Brian.
It's good
Best
to meet
of
you. I
luck.
love the
Great-
place.
Yeah, great
You guys
to meet
can-
you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.